Shalom, y'all. I'm Jasmine from Jew in the Kitchen, and today we're gonna make challah bread. Now, if you've ever wanted to make bread but you feel too intimidated, today is your lucky day because this recipe is super easy. Let me show you the ingredients. We've got olive oil and canola, kosher salt, sugar, yeast, water, and flour. Now I'm gonna be mixing this a little bit differently than I normally would because I got this recipe from my aunt in Israel. And I asked my cousin, I was like, can you give me the recipe for the best challah in the world? And he was like, sure. And so, but he said, I don't know if she's gonna give you exact measurements because we do everything by the eye here. And so her measurement for water was 2 to 3 cups of water. And I don't know how much this bread's gonna need. So this is why we're gonna be mixing it a little bit differently than I normally would. In this method of mixing, we're gonna be mixing all of the dry ingredients first, and then we're gonna be mixing in pretty hot water. So I like to use this thermometer right here. I use it for all my cooking. Every time I need to have a certain temperature, this is the thermometer I use. So I've set it to 120. And on the back of any dry yeast container, like I'm using Red Star today, it'll say mixer method, and that's the method. It's not traditional method, it's the mixer method. And it'll tell you that you need to make the water 120 to 130 Fahrenheit. So I'm just checking the water, and it's hot enough. So really quickly, we're just gonna put all of the dry ingredients together. Super easy. And for the exact measurements, please go to my website at jewinthekitchen.com. So we've got our yeast, we've got our sugar. And if you notice, that's not very much sugar for all this flour. That's because I'm making a Moroccan challah. I'm not making traditional Ashkenazi kind of challah. Now, that type of challah would be a lot sweeter, and I love it. It's delicious, but I prefer to make a more savory challah for Shabbat because I like to dip it in savory things like metbucha and hummus. And so that's why I decided to make the Moroccan challah that I'm used to. And it just has much less sugar than the Ashkenazi type challah. All right, then we've got our kosher salt. And I'm just gonna give this a quick stir with like a spoon, like just a rough stir. And if you've noticed, I've put this in my mixing bowl for my KitchenAid. Now I used to not always have this for just for the last couple of years I've had a KitchenAid. Before, this was my KitchenAid. I just use my hands and it was perfectly fine. And so if you don't have a KitchenAid, do not worry, you can do this by hand, it's not hard. Then I'm gonna add my oil, okay? And now I'm just gonna add like half of this water, and I'm gonna save a cup behind because it's 2 to 3 cups. Then I'm gonna put it in here. I'm gonna put it this way so that the handle's not in the way so you can kind of see what's going on. Okay, put it down and let it go. But we're gonna start slow because we do not want this flour going everywhere. Okay. And this is gonna mix, mix, mix. Now, if you've ever made bread before, you know that it's traditional to bloom the yeast in the water. But the water cannot be too hot for the yeast because it'll kill the yeast. And 120 to 130 degrees would be way too hot for the water in the traditional method. But because we mix the yeast in with the flour's like protecting the yeast, and that warm water, that hot water will not kill the yeast. It'll actually cool down just by being mixed in with the flour. So if you want to look real quick, you can see that this dough is way too dry. So we're gonna add a little bit of water. It's okay if the water gets everywhere, it's just water. And we're gonna mix, 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 and let it go. And you can always, just don't be afraid. Everyone's afraid of bread, but it can be your friend. If you add too much water, add more flour. It's easier to add flour, okay? So I would err on the side of adding too much water, then and adding flour to correct it, than to making it too dry and trying to add water later on, if that makes sense. Okay, so this is really starting to get, form a ball, if you want to take a look. The engine, or not the engine, the machine's really kind of having to work. This is a lot of dough. I'm just going to turn it up a little bit. And this is going to run, I'm going to let this run for probably 8 minutes. After it has become a ball, I'm going to turn it off real quick and kind of get it off of its hook. I'm using a hook, I'm using a hook attachment. Okay, and this dough's already warm and everything from the hot water, so that's always good. It's going to help the yeast development. The gluten development going to help the yeast be activated. Okay, so we're just going to let this run. Looks really good. Looks like all the flour's hydrated. We're going to let this run for about 8 minutes, and I'm going to come back and show you what you need to look for to tell that the dough is ready and ready for its first rise. Gonna mix, mix, mix. The dough looks so different already. The sides of the bowl are completely clean, and the dough isn't becoming a ball. It's getting a lot softer, and when I touch it, it doesn't come back on my hand. It's not sticky anymore. So I'm gonna let this go for probably 5 more minutes, and then I'll show you what the dough looks like then. Gonna mix, mix, mix. Okay, every once in a while, I like to just take it off of the hook and kind of make sure that it's all getting mixed and not just one part of the dough is getting mixed over and over and over again. And actually, you know what? Sometimes I like to just finish it on the counter, because in the mixer, it's really common for there to be a pocket of dry flour, and you definitely don't want that. So I'm just gonna turn it over on the counter, and luckily, there was nothing left. No dry flour, no nothing. And it feels so good. It's so soft and supple. It's staying all together. My hands are totally clean. This is exactly what you want to see. And by the time you're done, it should be so smooth, like a baby's butt. I don't know a better way to describe it. I guess if you're under 30, maybe it would feel like your cheek. I don't know. But then to see if the gluten development is enough, you take a piece, which I don't think this is ready yet. You take a piece. And this is called the window pane test. And it just means that you're able to stretch it without it ripping. And you can see light through it, which it's getting there. I don't know if you can see the light through it, but it's getting there. I'm going to probably knead it for a couple more minutes. So challah bread is, it means a lot in the Jewish religion. We serve it every week for Shabbat. There's all different ways you can braid it, and I'll teach you some of the most popular ways. I usually do a 3 braid and a 6 braid. But when I'm kneading by hand, I like to kind of think about, I kind of like to put some intention into my bread. I don't know if that makes sense. Maybe I've watched that movie Challah too many times, where what she feels goes into her cooking, but I always like to just kind of think about something that I'm grateful for, or think about my family or whatever, and kind of bake that into the bread. So, and it's just kind of a good time to have some quiet time for yourself and just get into the kneading. I love doing this last part by hand because there's just nothing like it. Oh, and I guess I should teach you how to knead. So you've got your dough, and I literally just see how it's kind of like a log. I turn it this way, and I push out, fold over, push out, fold over, push out, fold over, until it kind of becomes a log, then I turn it. And so I'm just gonna keep kneading for about another minute. That's what I think it needs. And when my kids were young, I used to say that their arms were like challah dough rolls. And I think in Japan, there's a milk bread that And people post pictures of their little baby's arms looking like the fluffy little milk bread. So that's what I think challah dough looks like. It's like a little baby, I don't know, a little baby arm. Okay, so we're just gonna keep kneading this. Now this looks perfect to me. It is so soft and supple and smooth. So different from the original dough that we started with. So this looks perfect. This probably was kneading in the machine for 7 minutes, and then I did 3 minutes on my own, so a total of 10 minutes. All right, so I think we're done kneading. I'm just gonna kind of bring it into a ball. Okay, beautiful, beautiful. This is gonna be so delicious. Okay, so the challah bread needs 2 rises. The first rise is the longest amount of time. I'm gonna grab my olive oil. Because I use olive oil so much, I love to have it in a little squeeze bottle like this. You can get them for like $1. And I just put some olive oil in there. And this is so that, and I turn it over, I swirl it, and then I turn it over like this, okay? So every part of the bread has olive oil on it. Okay, so now that I've oiled the dough and the bowl, I'm just going to wrap it in saran wrap. And I lost my box for my saran wrap, but that's fine because they're so annoying and I feel like they always break and you know how it goes. There we go. Okay, and it's just gonna rest like this until it's doubled in size. Now it depends on how hot your house is. It's a winter day in Texas, so it's a little bit chilly. And I really want this to rise pretty quickly. I want it to rise in like an hour. So I have a trick for that. If you want to follow me over to the oven, this is what I like to do. And here's my little pup, Eddie. I like to hit bake, and then the lowest my oven will go, which is 200. And I just wait, and I wait for it to be until when I stick my hand in there, it's just a little bit warm. I'm not trying to preheat it to 200 degrees. I want it to just be a little bit warmer than my actual kitchen is. Now, if you're cooking already in your oven, then the stovetop is gonna be emitting warmth. And so when I do that, I like to just rise my challah on the stovetop because it's already a warm environment, but that's not how my kitchen is today. So I'm just gonna wait for a second. It probably takes 5 minutes, and then I'll put my challah in there and turn the oven off. Alrighty, so the oven is preheated to just warm. I don't know the actual temperature, but I had it set on 200, and I was just kind of bringing up the temperature inside the oven to be nice and warm. So because the oven racks are metal, they tend to heat up. And I don't want that to affect, like I don't want the bottom part of my challah dough to get too warm. So I just put a tea towel in there and set my challah dough on top. I'm gonna put a timer on for an hour because it will definitely be done in an hour. I'm probably gonna check on it in 45 minutes. So while we're waiting for that to rise, I just wanted to mention that I am very particular about my flours. Now, King Arthur is not a sponsor of mine, unless they want to be, and you know where to find me, King Arthur. I love their flour. I cannot say enough good things about it. When quarantine started, when Corona started and everybody decided that they wanted to be a baker and start sourdough and all that stuff, King Arthur flour was the first to sell out. I know this because I bought, I don't even know how many bags. This is like before they put on, you know, don't buy too many bags per person. And for a little while there, I couldn't find King Arthur flour, and I tried to make challah, and it did not turn out the same. I used the same recipe. The only thing that was different was the flour, and I could tell it immediately. You know, not only do they have like a superior product, it's unbleached and everything, and it's a employee-owned company, but they always put their protein content on their flour, and that is really important. It's really important if you're making bread because the higher the protein, the more gluten, the more stretch, the more chew your bread is gonna have. And I just swear by this flour. Now, no worries if you don't have access to King Arthur flour, that's fine. You can use any kind of bread flour. You can even use all-purpose flour for your challah. But if you have access to King Arthur flour, definitely use it. Or if you want to make a special challah for Rosh Hashanah, or you have guests over and you want your challah to be, you know, chef's kiss perfect, go for it and use King Arthur flour. It's the only flour I use. So there's one other thing that I am is the new love of my life, and it is this Diamond Kosher salt. And this is not a commercial at all, I swear. These people are not a sponsor of mine either. I heard about this, I think I was watching like Bon Appetit, like Claire was doing one of her gourmet makes or whatever, and she kept talking about Diamond Kosher salt, Diamond Kosher salt. And anyway, I went on Amazon and I was like, what is Diamond Kosher salt? And I ordered this, and I have given this away as gifts. Like, that's how much I love my Diamond Kosher salt. I don't want you to feel like this is a commercial, so I'm just gonna zip it with that stuff. But these two things are staples in my kitchen. And so I'm gonna include these ingredients in the description box below. And like I said before, you can find all the measurements of this recipe on my website at jewinthekitchen.com. Okay, so let's see how our challah dough has risen. And it's very well risen. Oh my gosh. This was like really, that happened, that was a warm oven. And it's really not hot. It's like not hot at all. You know, like I can touch all this stuff. And the dough feels warm. So I'm just punching it down. Not aggressively. I'm not gonna like punch it, you know. But that's what you want to see. I mean, that was a beautiful rise. And I'm gonna measure out how much these doughs should weigh so that they're consistent. All right, so first I'm gonna just see how heavy the dough is. I usually like to measure it in grams and kilos. So we've got 1,708 grams. All right, so I have my bench scraper, and this is what I'm gonna use to cut the challah dough. I've decided that I'm gonna do 4 challahs. So I divided 1,708 by 4. And obviously you can do this by eye. And if you were to do it by eye, what I would do is, come here and look real quick. I would shape it into a log. I would divide it in half, and then I would divide each half into halves. And then you would have your 4 loaves. But because I want this to be as accurate as possible, as precise as possible, I'm gonna actually measure it or weigh it with my kitchen scale. These are not expensive. You can get these for $20. Okay. How close? Oh my gosh, y'all. Look, come here, come here. I freaking, 427. I did that just all on my own. That's the number I needed to get. 427 grams. And I eyeballed that. So that's always fun when you get it right on the money the first time. Okay, so I will shape the first one, and then we'll just do one by one. I'll show you the easiest braid, and that's a 3 braid. I'm just kind of rolling this into a log. I guess if we want to be real consistent, we can divide 427 by 3 and figure out how much each rope should be. Okay, so we've got our 3 measured pieces of dough that are at 142 grams each. This is going to be for the 3 braid. So I just pat it out, and then I roll and I like push it down to kind of seal it. I roll and I push, and I roll and I push, and that just kind of gets the big air bubbles out. And then I roll it into a rope. And I've never actually measured to see how long I do. Yeah, it's probably going to be, I like my challah to be pretty like not long and thin, you know what I mean? I like them to be like tall and fluffy. And so let's just do them at a foot in length. All right, so we've got our ropes and I've pinched it at the top. Okay, and I'm gonna show you how to do a 3 braid. There's 2 techniques to doing a 3 braid. You can go over the middle one and over the middle one if you like that braid, or just for a slightly different look, you can go under the middle one, under the middle one, under the middle one. Okay, this is the one we're gonna do today. Under the middle one, under the middle one. And you just go like this and like this, over and over, until you come to the end, and you're gonna pinch the bottom little pieces, the end pieces, together, and you're gonna tuck it, just like that. And then you take the top end and you pinch it one more time and tuck it. And you've got your beautiful challah. And see, if you have a big hole like this that I can see right there, I usually will get a toothpick. I'll get a toothpick real quick, and I pop it. Pop. There we go. That way it's just more consistent with the crumb. Okay, and we carefully move it over here, and I put it right here. I'm gonna teach you how to do the 6 braid now. This is an ambitious braid, so don't feel bad if it seems overwhelming to you at first. I'll go really slow and teach you how to do it. All right, so I've got my 6 ropes all measured out and rolled, and I'm just gonna do the 6 braid for you. We take the outer 2 ropes and we cross them over each other. And now whatever rope is on top, we move to the middle, okay? Now it's in the middle. Then we take the second from the top and we cross that over. And now this one's on the top, so it's gonna go in the middle. Then we move over to the side, second from the top, crosses over. Right now it doesn't look like anything, but it will. Now the top moves to the middle. Second from the top, crosses over, and the top moves to the middle. Second from the top, crosses over, and the top moves to the middle. The top crosses over and the top goes to the middle. See, it's almost too hard now. I just like to do as much as I possibly can, and then I pinch it and I tuck it. Okay, and then I go to the top and I kind of pinch it and roll it under as well. And then you've got your gorgeous 6 braid challah. They're gonna hang out for 30 minutes on a warm preheating oven. So as I preheat my oven to 350, I'm going to let the loaves hang out and prove for 30 minutes on top of the warm oven. Hi, okay, so the final proving has been done. It's been 30 minutes. A quick way you can tell that it's proved for long enough, you just give it a poke. And if it starts to spring back but doesn't totally spring back, then you know that the bread is fully proved. So in this cup, I have a whole egg, and I'm just gonna beat it with my pastry brush. And this is gonna be the egg wash. This is what's gonna give the challah dough that glossy shine that you see, but it's also gonna help us stick the toppings to it. So right here I've got everything bagel. This is so delicious. If you've ever had an everything bagel, you know. It's got everything in it. Then we've got sesame seeds. This is very traditional, especially in Israel for the challah loaves. Then we've got poppy seed and then za'atar. Now za'atar is a Middle Eastern spice, and it's everywhere in Israel. You can put it on pita, you can put it on feta, and and drizzle it with olive oil. I put it on plain hummus and drizzle it with olive oil and za'atar. So I'm gonna put some za'atar on challah. Okay, so this is mixed up good enough. I don't add water or anything. Some people do an egg yolk and then they add some water. Some people do an egg white and they add some water. I just do a whole egg and it works fine. So you just mix it and then you just, like you're painting. Okay, it doesn't have to be perfect. This is food for you and it's gonna be delicious. And if you make this for anyone, they're gonna be super impressed because it's not just a loaf of bread. Look at it, it's artwork. All right, so I have finished egg washing all of the loaves, and we're just gonna start with some sesame seed. Like I said, this is the most traditional. And you know, I really like to alternate the pattern with sesame seed and poppy seeds, or sometimes I'll get sesame seeds, and I like to really load it up on the sesame seeds. I'll get white sesame seeds and then black sesame seeds, and I'll do like one rope white sesame seeds, the one rope black sesame seeds, you know? And then it just like looks so cool. It's kind of like a tuxedo little challah dough. But I'm just gonna do one of each just so you can see. I'm just gonna do one topping on each challah just so you can see what it looks like. All right, so I've got the oven preheated to 350, and these should take 25 to 30 minutes. All right, so it's been 15 minutes, and I'm just gonna take these out. They're looking absolutely gorgeous. I'm gonna do this super quick. I'm just switching them. I'm switching and turning, okay? You wanna do it as quick as possible because you don't want it to deflate at all. And I'm not banging it around or anything like that. These loaves are looking so good. They're not ripping, which means that they weren't underproofed, and they're not staying flat, which means that they didn't overproof. Okay, so I'm gonna set it for actually another 10 minutes, then we're gonna check on it. All right, so it's been 10 minutes, and I'm just gonna check it. They are not brown enough yet, so I'm gonna put it on for 5 more minutes. And then we'll come back and take a look. All right, so that time's up and we're just gonna take a look. And they're looking nice and golden. I definitely like a pretty golden challah. Like there's some spots here that are still a little bit light for me. If I really wanna check to see if they're done, I may insert a thermometer, and it should be like 190 to 200 degrees Fahrenheit on the inside of the bread. So let's actually just do that now. Let's check it now. Okay. And then we just set it to the temperature we want. I'm gonna do like 196. Let's take this bottom one. This is like the lightest. And I'm gonna stick it into the thickest challah. Just kind of like in the crack where nobody's gonna really see it. Yeah, we're there. All right, so the challahs are pretty much cooled. We've got the za'atar, everything bagel, poppy seed, and sesame seed. So let's cut into one. This is the best part after all. After all your hard work, you get to cut in and see this beautiful, fluffy bread. I mean, look at this. This is like a pillow. It's so delicious. It smells so good. Oh my gosh. All right, so I'm just gonna rip into this. Look at that gluten. That's great. That's what you wanna see. Let's have a piece with butter, because butter and bread. Is there anything better? It's so good. The sesame seed is like perfectly toasted. The bread is so springy. And soft. I mean, it's like a pillow. I don't know how else to explain it. This is delicious. If you make this, you will love it, and everyone who eats it will love you for making it for them. If you enjoyed this recipe, please go to jewinthekitchen.com, where I will be posting so many delicious, wonderful recipes. And thanks for stopping by my kitchen. I hope to see you again soon. Bye.